I was standing at the check-in counter when my brother grabbed my ticket, glanced at it, and shoved it back into my hands with that familiar smirk. Economy. He said the word like it was a disease. This is all you can handle. I did not argue. I did not defend myself. I simply reached into my pocket, pulled out my ID, and placed it on the scanner. The agent behind the counter gasped. The screen flashed red. And everything satisfying about this moment, I had been waiting for it my entire life. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop a comment below with your location. If you have not already hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you are going to want to hear how this story ends. Now let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everyone knows your name and your business. My family lived in a modest, two-story house on Maple Street, and from the outside we looked like the picture of American normalcy. But inside those walls, there was an invisible line that divided my brother Marcus and me. He was 4 years older, and from the day I was born, he cast a shadow so large that I spent most of my childhood trying to find sunlight. Marcus was everything my father Harold wanted in a son. He was tall, athletic, confident, and loud in all the ways that made people pay attention. He played quarterback on the high school football team, dated the homecoming queen, and graduated with honors. My father would stand on the sidelines at every game chest, puffed out, telling anyone who would listen that his boy was destined for greatness. And he was right. Marcus did become great, at least by conventional standards. I was different. Where Marcus was bold, I was quiet. Where he commanded rooms, I observed from corners. I loved reading Tinkering with Computers and dreaming about things that did not exist yet. My mother Diane used to introduce us to relatives by saying, "Marcus is our star, and Carmine is our thinker." It sounds harmless, but when you hear it enough times, you start to understand the ranking. There is one memory that has stayed with me all these years. I was 15, and I had just won second place in the state science fair. It was a big deal. My project was on renewable energy systems, and the judges said it showed remarkable potential for someone my age. I stood on that stage, waiting for my name to be called, scanning the audience for my parents. They were not there. They were 40 miles away, watching Marcus play in a football game that meant nothing in the grand scheme of things. I accepted my award alone, shook hands with strangers who congratulated me, and drove home with my science teacher because no one else came. That night, when my parents finally got back, my mother said, "Oh, that is nice, honey," as she walked past me to heat up leftovers. She did not even ask to see the ribbon. I learned early that some kids are born to be seen, and some are born to watch from the sidelines. As we got older, the gap between Marcus and me only widened. He went to law school at Columbia, one of the best in the country, and landed a position at a prestigious firm in New York City. Every holiday, he would come home in a different luxury car, wearing designer suits, talking about cases worth millions of dollars. The whole family would gather around him like he was royalty returning from conquest. My father would pour him whiskey and ask for every detail. My mother would beam with pride, touching his arm like she could not believe he was real. And me, I went to a state university, majored in business administration, and took a job at a small logistics company after graduation. It was honest work, and I was good at it, but nobody in my family ever asked what I did. At Thanksgiving dinners, I would sit at the end of the table, eating in silence, while Marcus held court at the other end. Sometimes I would catch my father looking at me with something that was not quite disappointment, but was not pride either. It was indifference. And somehow that felt worse. I remember calling my mother once, a few years after college, to tell her I had been promoted to regional manager. It was a big step for me, and I was genuinely excited. She listened quietly, then said, "That is nice, honey. Did you hear Marcus just bought a condo in Manhattan? The building has a doorman and everything." I hung up the phone and sat in my car for 20 minutes, just staring at the steering wheel. I was not angry. I was not even sad. I just felt hollow, like I had been slowly emptied out over the years, and there was nothing left to feel. Every achievement I had was a footnote in the story of my brother's success. But there was one person in my family who saw me differently, and that was my little sister Sophie. She was 6 years younger than me, the baby of the family, and somehow she had escaped the competitive dynamic that poisoned Marcus and me. Sophie was kind in a way that felt almost revolutionary in our household. She called me on my birthdays, asked about my life, and actually listened to the answers. When I got that promotion, she was the one who sent me a card that said, "I always knew you would do amazing things." I still have that card in my desk drawer. So when Sophie called to tell me she was getting married, I knew I had to be there. Her voice on the phone was warm and sincere. She said, "I need you there, Carmine. You are the only one who never made me feel like I had to prove anything." Those words hit me harder than I expected. I told her I would not miss it for the world. The wedding was in Ohio, back in our hometown. I booked my flight, packed my bag, and prepared myself for the inevitable. I would have to see my parents endure their polite disinterest, and most of all, I would have to face Marcus. A few days before the trip, I got a text from him. It said, "I will be on the same flight. Try not to embarrass yourself at the airport. No greeting, no warmth. Just that familiar condescension, wrapped in a single sentence." I should have been angry, but after 34 years, I had learned that anger was just another way of letting him win. The morning of the flight, I arrived at the airport early. I was wearing what I always wear when I travel, a pair of comfortable jeans, a plain polo shirt, and my old backpack that I have had since college. It is faded and worn, but it has been with me through every important moment of my adult life, so I keep it. I do not dress to impress. I dress to be comfortable. That has always been my philosophy. I was sitting near the check-in area, scrolling through emails on my phone, when I heard a voice that made my stomach tighten. Well, well, look who actually made it. I looked up to see Marcus walking toward me. He was dressed like he was heading to a board meeting, not a flight to Ohio. His suit probably cost more than my first car. He was pulling a Rimowa suitcase, the kind that influencers show off on social media, and on his wrist was a Rolex that caught the fluorescent airport light. Everything about him screamed wealth and importance. He stopped in front of me, looked me up and down, and let out a small laugh. Still traveling light, I see. Some things never change. I stood up, slinging my backpack over one shoulder. "Good to see you too, Marcus." He ignored the comment and launched into what he did best, talking about himself. "I just closed a deal worth $2.5 million, he said, adjusting his cufflinks. "The partners are thrilled. They are talking about making me senior associate by next year. Of course that means more travel, but the company upgraded me to business class permanently. Can you imagine flying economy when you do not have to?" I did not respond, which only encouraged him to keep going. He pulled out his phone and made a call, speaking just loud enough for me to hear every word. "Yeah, I am at the airport with my little brother. He is still figuring things out, you know how it is. Anyway, about that contract, let us discuss it in the lounge. I will be there in 20 minutes. He did not even try to hide it. To him, I was not a person. I was a prop in his one-man show. When it was time to check in, Marcus grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the business class counter. "Come on," he said. "You can at least stand near success while you wait for your economy boarding." I followed, not because I wanted to, but because I knew what was about to happen, and I needed to see it through. The agent at the counter was a woman in her 50s, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her name tag read Gloria. She smiled professionally as Marcus handed over his passport and boarding pass, processing him quickly. "And for you, sir." She looked at me. Before I could answer, Marcus reached over and snatched the ticket from my hand. He glanced at it, and his face twisted into an expression of exaggerated pity. He shoved it back at me like it was contaminated. Economy. Seriously. He said it loud enough that people in line behind us turned to look. "This is all you can handle. I offered to upgrade you, but I guess some people are just comfortable staying at the bottom." I did not remember him ever offering to upgrade anything. That was not Marcus. He did not help. He performed helpfulness when it made him look good, but this was not one of those times. The people around us were staring now. An older couple whispered to each other. The husband leaned toward his wife and said, just loud enough for me to hear, "That is rough. Imagine having a brother like that." For the first time in years, I felt something other than numbness. It was not anger. It was clarity. Gloria looked uncomfortable, caught between professional neutrality and obvious sympathy. She cleared her throat softly. "Sir, may I see your ID, please?" Marcus cut in again. "Just process his economy ticket so we can move on. Some of us have lounges to get to." I looked at my brother for a long moment. 34 years of memories flashed through my mind. The science fair, the phone calls, the empty seat at every table where I should have been welcomed. I could have said something. I could have defended myself, explained, argued. But I was tired of playing a game I had never signed up for. Instead, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my ID, and placed it gently on the scanner. My hand was steady. My heartbeat was calm. There was a strange peace in that moment, a quietness I had not felt in years. I did not do this to prove Marcus wrong. I did it because I was finally ready to stop being invisible. The scanner beeped. The screen flickered once, twice, then flashed a deep red. Gloria's eyes went wide. She stood up from her chair so quickly that it rolled backward and bumped into the counter behind her. Her hand flew to her chest. Marcus took a step back, a grin spreading across his face. "I knew it," he said, practically laughing. "What did you do now? Security issue. Is Homeland Security about to drag you away?" But Gloria was not calling security. She was staring at her screen with an expression I can only describe as shock mixed with embarrassment. She looked at me then, at the screen, then back at me again. "Sir," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I am so sorry. I did not recognize you. Please give me one moment." She picked up the phone next to her terminal and dialed a number, speaking quickly in what sounded like code. "Red 7, counter 12. Yes, immediately." Marcus's smile faded. He looked at the screen, then at me, then at Gloria. What is going on? What does red mean? Gloria did not answer him. She was too busy straightening her uniform and smoothing her hair like she was preparing to meet someone important. Within 2 minutes, a man appeared. He was tall, dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal vest, with a badge that identified him as Richard Senior Operations Manager. He walked directly to me, extending his hand, with a warmth that seemed almost rehearsed in its perfection. "Mr. Carmine," he said, shaking my hand firmly, "it is an honor to have you flying with us today. Mr. Julian called ahead and mentioned you might be on this flight. I apologize that we did not have someone waiting for you at the entrance." Marcus stood frozen. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. He looked like a computer that had encountered a fatal error. Gloria leaned toward Richard and whispered, "I did not recognize him. He was dressed casually, and he booked an economy seat." I had no idea. Richard smiled, nodding. "That is Mr. Carmine for you. He always says he wants to experience the airline the way our regular passengers do. Quality control, he calls it. It helps us stay honest." Marcus finally found his voice. "Wait, what is happening right now? Who is Julian?" "What do you mean, quality control?" Richard looked at Marcus, then at me, clearly waiting for permission to explain. I gave him a small nod. But before Richard could speak, I decided to do it myself. I turned to face my brother, and for the first time in our lives, I spoke without apologizing for existing. "Julian is my business partner," I said calmly. "We co-founded this airline 7 years ago. I own 40% of the company. The economy ticket was a test. I fly different classes randomly to check service quality from the passenger perspective. The red screen is an internal code that alerts staff when one of the founders is checking in. The silence that followed was louder than any argument we had ever had. Marcus blinked. His face went through several colors, red, then pale, then something approaching gray. He swallowed hard. "This is a joke, right? You are messing with me. There is no way." Richard, ever professional, pulled out a tablet and turned it toward Marcus. On the screen was my internal company profile, my photograph, my title as co-founder and chief strategy officer, and a list of credentials that Marcus had never bothered to learn about because he had never bothered to ask. The people around us had stopped pretending not to listen. The older couple who had pitied me earlier were now staring with their mouths open. The wife whispered to her husband, "Did you hear that he owns the airline?" Marcus tried to recover. He puffed out his chest, attempting to summon his usual arrogance. "Why did you never tell anyone? Why did you let us all think you were just nobody?" I looked at him, really looked at him for what felt like the first time. I saw the desperation behind his bravado, the insecurity beneath his expensive suit. I saw a man who had built his entire identity on being better than me and who was now watching that foundation crumble. "I never said I was." "Nobody, Marcus," I replied. "You just never bothered to ask." Richard cleared his throat politely. "Mr. Carmine, may I escort you to the Founders Lounge? We have prepared refreshments, and there is a private boarding area whenever you are ready." I shook my head. "Thank you, Richard, but I will board with everyone else. That is the whole point." Richard nodded understanding. "Of course, sir. If you need anything at all, please do not hesitate to ask." As he walked away, I turned back to Marcus. He was still standing there, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel the urge to rub it in or deliver a final cutting remark. I just felt tired. Tired of the competition, tired of the resentment, tired of a relationship that had never really been a relationship at all. So I said the only thing left to say. "The business class lounge is nice, by the way. I helped design it myself. Enjoy your flight, Marcus." I did not wait for his response. Some conversations do not need an ending. They just need to stop. I picked up my backpack, nodded goodbye to Gloria, and walked toward the gate. I found my seat in economy row 23 window side. The seat next to me was occupied by an elderly woman with white hair and kind eyes. Her name, I would learn, was Margaret, and she was flying to Ohio to meet her newest great-grandchild. She did not know who I was. She did not care about airline ownership or red screens or sibling rivalries. She just wanted to show me pictures of her family and talk about the baby shower she was planning. I listened to every word, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt genuinely peaceful. As the plane took off and the city shrank beneath us, I stared out the window and let my mind wander. I thought about the last 7 years, about the journey that had brought me here. It started in a garage apartment in Austin, Texas. Julian and I had met at a business conference, two young guys with big ideas and empty bank accounts. He had the operational expertise. I had the strategic vision. Together, we built a business plan for a regional airline that prioritized customer experience over profit margins. Everyone told us we were crazy. The aviation industry was brutal, dominated by giants with unlimited resources. What chance did two nobodies have? But we were not nobodies. We were believers. We believed that if you treated people with respect, if you listened to their needs and delivered on your promises, they would come back. And they did. Year after year, passenger after passenger, we grew. We made mistakes. We nearly went bankrupt twice. There were nights when I slept on the office floor because I could not afford rent and refused to ask my family for help. I never told them what I was building, not because I wanted to surprise them someday, but because I knew it would not matter. Marcus could have cured cancer, and my parents would still ask about his portfolio. I was not building this company to prove anything to them. I was building it because I loved it. Because for the first time in my life, I had found something that was entirely mine. Margaret interrupted my thoughts by asking what I did for a living. I smiled and said I help run a small company. Nothing too exciting. She nodded satisfied with the answer and went back to telling me about her apple pie recipe. Apparently, the secret is a touch of lemon zest in the crust. Somewhere in business class, Marcus was probably staring at his champagne, replaying our conversation, wondering where he went wrong. I was eating pretzels and learning about baking from a 72-year-old grandmother. I knew which seat I preferred. Sophie's wedding was beautiful. It was held in a small white church on the edge of town, the same one where my parents had married 40 years ago. Sophie looked radiant in her dress, and when she saw me in the crowd, she broke into the biggest smile I had ever seen. By then, word had spread. Marcus had undoubtedly told the story, probably spinning it to make himself look less foolish. But the truth has a way of cutting through spin. My father approached me during the reception, his voice awkward and uncertain. Carmine, he said, I did not know. About the airline. About any of it. I know, Dad, I replied. It is okay. But it was not okay, not entirely. Decades of neglect could not be erased by one conversation. Still, I saw something in his eyes that I had never seen before regret. It was not enough to heal everything, but it was a start. My mother found me later, near the dessert table. Her eyes were red, and she hugged me tighter than she had in years. Why did you never tell us? She asked. I held her for a moment before answering. I did not need you to be proud of what I built, Mom. I needed you to be proud of who I was before I built anything. She did not say anything. She just nodded, and I think for the first time, she understood. Sophie pulled me aside before the night ended. She wrapped her arms around me and whispered, I always knew you were special, Carmine. I did not need a red screen to tell me that. I looked across the lawn and saw Marcus standing alone near the garden, watching our family interact without him at the center. He looked lost, like a man who had suddenly realized that being the loudest voice in the room did not mean you were the most important one. I did not feel satisfaction. I felt something closer to sadness. He was my brother, and despite everything, I did not want him to suffer. I just wanted him to see me. Maybe one day he would. Maybe he would not. That was his journey to take, not mine to force. Success is a strange thing. It can open doors, but it cannot fix what was broken long before you found the key. Months have passed since that day at the airport. Life has returned to normal, or at least my version of normal. I still fly economy when I do quality checks. I still wear jeans and polos. Julian teases me constantly. He says, you could buy the whole airport, and you still dress like a college kid. I always give him the same answer. The clothes do not make the man. The man makes the choice. My relationship with my parents is healing slowly. We talk more now. They ask questions and actually listen to the answers. It is not perfect, and it may never be, but it is progress. Marcus and I keep our distance. We are not hostile, but we are not close either. Some wounds need time, and some need space. I have made peace with both. I spent most of my life believing I needed to be seen to matter. But the truth is, the people who really love you do not need proof, and the people who need proof will never really love you. My brother mocked my economy ticket because he thought it defined me. It did not. It never did. We are not measured by the seats we sit in or the tickets we hold. We are measured by how we treat the people sitting next to us, whether they know our name or not. The next time someone looks at you and sees less than you are, do not argue, do not explain, just keep building. One day, the scanner will turn red. But by then, you will not need it to. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated by someone close to you? How did you prove them wrong? Or did you decide it was not worth proving anything at all? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for being here and listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that your worth is not determined by the opinions of others. Keep building your dreams, keep believing in yourself, and never let anyone else write your story for you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.